when I began teaching systematics, I began looking for a textbook that is thoroughly evangelical. And what I found was a number of very good textbooks written by evangelicals, but nothing that I could call a bona fide evangelical theology, a theology that has its center and boundaries and interpretive glue determined by the gospel. Because I've got this crazy idea, this is my crazy idea, that the singular most important thing in evangelicalism is the evangel, the gospel. I thought that was the most important thing. I thought that would be reflected in a really good systematic theology. And I went looking for a book like this, and I couldn't find it. And I searched near, I searched far, I quested after it, and I could not find it. And I began to think, okay, what type of book am I actually looking for? What would this book look like? And I imagined a book that set up the whole theological project by articulating the gospel at theological depth. Each of the major loci, or the subtopics in theology, would be related to the gospel in a clear way, and then the whole thing is just permeated and oozes with gospel. And the more I began to think about it, the more this became the book I wanted to write, not just find. And so I put pen to paper, I began lecturing on this, and I worked my way through the various subtopics, through the various areas, trying to do it in a way that I think is authentically evangelical and allows the gospel to breathe and be the life through the whole systematic theology. And I think also, at the end of the day, the goal of a good theology is not simply the acquisition of knowledge of God. I think the goal of theology, evangelical theology, is that we would be gospelized. When you magnetize a piece of metal, the whole piece of metal becomes magnetic. When you tenderize a piece of meat, the whole piece of meat becomes tender. When you sterilize a surgical tool, the whole tool becomes sterile. And when you're gospelized, you begin to reflect the realities of the gospel in your life, in your ministry, in your prayers, and your preaching. That, I submit, is the goal of evangelical theology, for us to properly become gospel people, to have our mission, our spirituality, all shaped by the good news of Jesus Christ, to see ourselves individually and our church corporately become this gospelized evangelical community. That is what I think an evangelical theology is, and that is what I think it's meant to do for us.